everyone. So I woke up with spirit really thick in the room, and I kept hearing God speaking, saying that he is looking for his disciples. They, I should say. God is not a gender. Let me make sure.
Recording in progress.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. So I just wanted to take a moment to gather with you and share this word. And let's just first take a couple of centering deep breaths. Clearly my daughter can hear that spirit is thick in the room. I'm just creating a sacred container for this message for the highest and best, calling forth everyone that is ready and needing to hear this message. So first off, as some of you guys know, last month I went through another awakening or unfoldment, and that was surrendering the fight of the way I had been going about life, and really like giving up, and Mother Mary coming to me in the bathtub. And Mother Mary doesn't come to me often. I walked with her, and I know we are one, but her presence doesn't come to me often, especially not her face or her embodiment. But this day she came, and my head was underneath the water, and she picked me up out of the water. And I could see my body in the mirror floating, lifeless. And when I popped out of my body, I couldn't see her. But when I was in my perspective, I could see her. And she flooded my head with all of this blue light that went throughout my body. And the next day, I was guided to speak about like who I am, but it was a little bit shaky, because I've always felt like when I say that I am channeling the Divine Mother, that it feels like a lie. It's more so that I channel Jesus. I'm here to be the embodiment of the Divine Mother, and so when I first brought you all that information, or really like felt like I was in the knowing of who I am, it came forward in still a protection, protective energy. And so what we're experiencing right now, just being in Cancer season and everything else, is all of our defenses that we have placed in front of the truth of who we are, the truth of our divinity, the masks that we've put on. So I'm here to invite you all to see that this is a beautiful unfoldment process. And although you may not remember choosing your parents, you chose them. And nothing on this planet is happening to you. But when we are vibrating, sorry, my cat is scratching. When we are vibrating at this lower level of consciousness, it feels like everything is happening to us. And when we have that, I would say it's like the first awakening. And that for me was when Archangel Michael came and hit me with this flash of light, and all of the thoughts that I'd ever thought were answered. And I had a new level of consciousness. And from that time and place, it's like I can see it as very, very distinct levels of consciousness. And so when we're feeling like, God and everything is outside of us, and we're even praying to God in a way where we're like, oh God, please, and why does like horrible things have to happen to me, and can you please send me more money? The reason why your prayers aren't answered, I also hear this common theme that people say, I made a deal with God. Like I told God that if he gave me this, then I would do X, Y, and Z. And I've heard that several times from people, and I don't correct them when I hear this, because from their perspective, whatever it was that they were bargaining, it got them what they wanted. They felt that relief. Like they experienced a miracle after exclaiming that. And so now they think that they're bound to this contract, that God has not enslaved you into any contract. And so that is why it is the only word that's really coming to me is ignorance. It's a form of ignorance to perceive yourself as a martyr for Christ, and go, because there is that energy of people who sacrifice themselves constantly and say that it's for Christ, or say that it's for their children, or say that it's for their relationship. This is just giving your power of choice away because you don't desire to take your own responsibility. And when you go to some extremes, it is a desire for punishment. It is a rebelling against God. And I understand that I'm not saying that every single person that's ever been a martyr for Christ was going at it in this rebellious, sacrificing way. I'm saying that there's archetypes, and then there is people's interpretation of specific archetypes or words. And so today I was doing an interview with Spiritually Raw, and since that awakening with Mother Mary, all of my lifetimes that are relevant to this current lifetime have been made clear to me. And for those of you that don't know, like we're just gonna clear the throat. So it's not like these are just my own thoughts. It's like the first awakening of who I've been in past lives came from Jesus telling me to go to Egypt, and then the Egyptian people recognizing me as Queen Cleopatra, and it hitting me in my soul in a depth that you cannot reach from a superficial level, from an untruth. There is a specific vibration of truth that strikes you like you are playing a violin, and it is a very distinct and vibration of truth when you're being played like a violin. And so that began my unfoldment process, and since then, all of my lifetimes since Lemuria have been revealed to me. And Since then, since 666, there was a changing of the guards. And what Jesus showed me was this golden scroll that he handed over. And so we're living from this new paradigm. But because we aren't aware of the new realm or reality, we're still perceiving from this lower level of consciousness. So what is being guided right now is for all of us to really, what he was showing me was to really like detox from all addictions. And this has been coming up this whole entire year. But I think that we are looking at addictions as some people have them and some people don't, not realizing that we have become addicted to everything, just being consumers and being in this illusion of separation. And so what I have discovered is that addiction is it's not a choice, it's not a state of mind, it's not something that some people do and some people don't. It is a biological affective response that happens when we perceive the absence of love and connection. But we can't be absent of love or connection because we are all one and we are created only of love. But we all know from the perception of separation, this feels like just a concept or a phrase that we say, but we don't really understand. 1 second. My cat is like eating plastic. Hey, no. No, we're not gonna eat plastic. That's so bad for you. So look in your life where you're clinging onto anything. Because the moment that we cling onto anything, and this can be, we're clinging onto our finances, we're clinging onto our partnership, we're clinging onto that TV remote, that the food that we're eating, the drink, everything that we cling to, and for whatever reason, you can feel that energy within you. Just think about when you think that you're hungry. There's a need to detox all of these clinging energy from within us, because the only way for us to be clear enough to know that our guidance is coming from Source, coming from the Holy Spirit, is if we aren't being ran by this biological affective response that is addiction. And so that is why Jesus put me through 40 days and 40 nights several times, but the very dramatic one was when he stood inside of my body and pushed things away from my mouth. And for 40 days and 40 nights, I couldn't sleep, eat, drink, anything, and I was just vibrating, shaking so hard, and no one knew what was happening with me, and it was terrifying. And it was to get me to stop trying to fill a void. And so my walk and my experience has been extreme for most, and I chose it that way because if it wasn't extreme, if it wasn't so blatant and loud and filled with instant karma, I would get distracted for longer than I have already been. And so I am being called now to step fully into the light, to say this is who I am and who I'm here to serve, and call forth the disciples that are here to be ministers of God, that are here to lead, because what we are seeing now is a falling of an empire. And even if you are not living in the United States, this is a global falling of an empire. But this is nothing to fear. But I need to make it very clear that every time that you focus your attention on something on the outside coming to rescue you, and whether that be a person like Donald Trump's coming back, or the aliens are coming, or cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and the moment cryptocurrency was going to be the next currency, but it's not anymore. Because the moment that people started to project their focus on that was going to be the new drug, the new thing that was going to rescue you, I see it falling like the World Trade Centers. Every single time that we are launching those rockets, putting our responsibility and our, I'm hearing sovereignty, into something of this illusionary world. And so currently we are choosing the hard way to wake up collectively. But we don't have to. But often humans, they choose the hard way. They choose the hard way so that they can basically run themselves into every other possibility, just like run it into the wall, so that they can turn around once they've hit that brick wall and no longer try to open that door. You have to walk in the other direction when everything has disintegrated in your life. And so if you're looking for your safety in your finances or in your career, in your relationship, or whatever it is, I would advise you to detox. I would advise you to put yourself through the next 40 days and 40 nights. I don't know, when I was being interviewed today, they asked me if that was Lent. Most of you guys should know that I don't know these things. I was not programmed by religion. The only thing I was programmed by in this lifetime was the family ancestry line that I came into and the things that I brought with me from previous lifetimes. And this is another thing that is coming to my attention for a reason, is we are if you're watching a program like this, you are the system breaker, the pattern interrupter. You are the world changer within your family system. I promise you, you did not choose into the most dysfunctional family, which we all chose into dysfunctional families, because that's the only thing that exists when you're perceiving from a level of separation. You can't have function, you can't have health, you can't have wholeness if you feel separated. It is a need for us to see what has gone so incredibly wrong as we've been living from this level of density, and to see the mess that we all have created. There is a need for us to take responsibility. Because until you can take responsibility for everything that you see, you have no power. You're always going to be the victim. And then we created a society that made you the good guy if you're the victim. And so understand that as long as we put an enemy outside of ourselves, we will continue to co-create energies, like demonic energies, basically. And so we are currently at this, we just had the solstice yesterday, but no matter when you watch this, it's perfect for you. So don't wait for whenever Lent is or any other, ritual, holiday, whatever. No, start today in whatever day that is for you. Unless you desire to the hard way. And ultimately, even when you're desiring to learn the hard way, there is no judgment in that. From my perspective, to witness when myself and others have done it the hard way, it is just how you feel when you witness your child doing it the hard way and continuing to fall off their bike and they won't let you help them. You just feel sad that they're choosing that. But you know that eventually that they're going to figure it out. And whether that comes in this lifetime or you returning, to God's world to remember the truth and come back and embody it. Because we are at this shifting where we are in a different age or era than we were even 2 years ago. And so as we are starting to ascend collectively and globally, and the earth is ascending, we've already been to the darkest part of our consciousness, and the only place we can go now is up. But you can choose to just paddle, just stand still and run out the time clock until you pass away. And that's your decision if you choose to do that. There really is a need for us to surrender fear or defenses against love. It's imperative that we all wake up and understand Jesus the Christ, he came and he fully actualized the Christ to show you how to do it, to show you what it looks like, to show you all that you will do and more when you remember the truth of your divinity. But Jesus didn't come alone. It was Mother Mary and myself and Jesus who all chose in together to bring Christ consciousness, the plan for salvation. And it was to come here, embody, and walk it out as disciples, basically. There is a need for two witnesses to be present for Christ consciousness to be actualized. And what this means is not just two people present in the spirit of doubt, because the apostles, there's nothing wrong with them. The whole entire planet was sitting at a level of density, a level of consciousness, to where this teaching hadn't been brought on the planet. It was something that was in our heart, we knew this consciousness. It wasn't like we made it up. This is where we came from. This is our Lemurian consciousness. It's once we fell into judgment from the Garden of Eden, we came into Lemuria, and we were very etheric as teachers, but there was all levels of density as the children started to further fragment and separate. And so Mother Mary and Jesus and I coming and bringing this plan to walk together, that means that we all came through the veil of illusions. Mother Mary having to carry that consciousness, and when the activation code came from Archangel Gabriel that she was going to conceive a child, immaculately conceive a child, she needed to have that consciousness within her to remember the plan, to know how to manifest and allow for Jesus to come through her. And it didn't just stop there. I mean, can you imagine if Jesus came in and, well, you can't imagine it because it's happened now, where we have come into ancestry lines of parents that absolutely did not see the God in us, the Christ in us. And so that's been our walk this life. But when we came, the three of us, Mother Mary, she always held that immaculate vision and energy of the Christ in Jesus from the time that she conceived him. She knew that he was the Messiah, and she didn't separate herself to feel unworthy. Instead, she held that sacred space and reverence for him. So yes, she was his mother, but she was also his student, as was I. And it was his walk in that lifetime to come and remember his divinity and walk in that. And for me to completely forget, to be completely plagued with all 7 of my seals with demons and completely asleep and forgot who I was. As we will see upon the planet, when we are not allowing ourselves to be rebirthed into the spirit, rebirthed by the Divine Mother, when we don't consecrate ourselves, and not in a religious sense, but in this, there is a need for us all to be birthed into a higher level of consciousness. Otherwise, you can't conceptualize it from separated consciousness. And so it is why the teachings of follow Mary Magdalene, because she forgot and remembered the way through Jesus. So she knows how to teach you all to understand the teachings of Christ, but also to actualize it within yourself. And so if Jesus would have came to find me, or to resurrect anyone, he wouldn't have been able to do that if he had forgotten who he was. If he was wobbling in a spirit of doubt at all, it wouldn't have been possible for him to, it wouldn't have been possible for any of those, I want to say acts of Christ, but he's bringing my attention to even his birth, where the wise men knew where he was. And, you know, when we first started out in Lemuria, everything used to sing. And when Jesus was born, everything was singing. And when we would walk, the trees would sing, and the people, no matter their differences, they were joy-filled. And some of them, of course, and it's the whole falling into judgment story, like Lucifer falling, fallen angel, feeling separated. It's that whole story blown up into lots of different people. And that spirit of doubt and that spirit of fear, it comes up to keep you separated. The ego's blatant job or intention is to protect you and to keep you separated. And it does this by keeping you enslaved in your pain and always trying to keep yourself safe, when that is an addiction and a never-ending cycle, because love needs no defense. And so it was only by Jesus knowing exactly who he was that he could call me forth for all of my seals to be instantly cleared and for full remembrance to happen within my consciousness. The same way that he was able to call Lazarus forth after 4 days of him being dead. This isn't that he is special. It is that he chose to fully remember and walk out in that remembrance. And so what he has been explaining to me today, and I allowed for him to use my mouth during the interview that I did earlier, and then afterwards I was like, oh my God, why did I tell them and the ego goes in, but it wasn't as much or as loud as it used to be. And then he showed me all of this, and he said, Kendra, do you understand that it is only by you fully remembering who you are and stepping in that and not having any wobble in when you share? It is not to be like, I'm the only one, or to take away from your experience. I invite you, any of you, if you feel like you are here to walk out as the embodiment of the Divine Mother, please do it. Please stand. Understand that if you feel like you are Mary Magdalene, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not taking that away from you. Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary both ascended to our light bodies to become one with the Holy Spirit after our physical walk here. We didn't die and leave bodies, although, you know, they would want you to think that there's like a skull or whatever that they parade around, and no. And the reason for this us walking in physical form, for Jesus to fully actualize the Christ, and for us to be able to hold an immaculate concept of Christ. Not fully, he's saying we were born Christed. But I would say that it was more so about us seeing and witnessing the God in him, and he's saying, and he sees and witnesses the God in us. But the point is like at the crucifixion, I have perceived in the past that Jesus didn't feel any pain. And it isn't to really even go into any of that. It is more so to remember that it was about us holding an immaculate concept of, although this is the illusion that is seeming to be, we know that the truth in God is that he could never be crucified. He could never be dead. Because we can see his spirit that lives on, that is fully alive, the spirit, his light body that walks with me every single day, that has always been with me. And so when you see and know that truth, it is like getting dressed up for Halloween, or putting on a play and having, blood and pretending to be murdered or whatever, and really getting taken away by that, really believing that no, you would know the truth. You could respect the illusion and play the part, but you would know the truth. And so that is why most of the apostles did not come. I have been told recently that John was there, and from my recollection, none of the apostles were there. And I wonder if they are talking about John the Baptist, because I remember very specifically that John the Baptist was arrested previous to Jesus being arrested. So I don't know. None of the apostles, to my recollection, were there. It was me, Mother Mary, and her sister Mary, who was her husband Joseph's sister. And now he's getting something off of the table. Oh my God. The reason why they weren't there wasn't like they were supposed to be there and they didn't show up. Remember that everything is divinely orchestrated, right? And so even if they wanted to be there, there would have been something that happened where they wouldn't have been able to hold space because they couldn't. How do I explain this? Because they wouldn't have been able to look at Jesus on the cross being crucified and not perceive him dying and not feel guilty, because they were in duality consciousness. They were learning Christ consciousness, and they were all very devoted students. But this consciousness was not actualized within them. And so understand that when we hold judgment and we even opinions, we are projecting our creation onto that. And so because they couldn't hold that consciousness, they weren't able to be a vibrational match, so to speak, to being there. But Jesus was able to resurrect, not because of, me bringing him my egg, which we did when we would bring new life to. There was lots of beautiful sacred ceremonies that we just naturally engaged in. It was just the way that we walked. And but he didn't need my egg for new life because he never died. because we are able to hold that immaculate concept, of course he was going to resurrect. And so, as I'm coming to a close, I'm sharing this all with you because I've been guided to share it with all of you. And there's a need for us to understand that when we are casting judgments, like, for instance, taking back that number 666, June 6th of this year was 666, and it's a 6 year. That's such a to even say that a number is demonic or the mark of the beast, like, just really look at some of these illusions and don't hold judgment for yourself, but just witness them when you are going into thinking that that person's bad, or the dark forces are sending this to you, or this is against you. Understand, even by turning on the news and watching the wars that are going on. I actually stood up and I was at a ceremony, a full moon ceremony, where I was just a guest. I've been guided to go to the different groups, the tribes here in Sedona and throughout the world, and start bringing us back together. And so I was just going as a student, allowing myself to, or not really a student, but as a recipient of the experience or the ceremony. And the instructor said that he invited everyone to go home and turn on the news so that they could see all of the emotions that it brought up for them, and then be able to work themselves through those emotions, which I totally understand his process. And that's a process for him. But to tell a collective group to go put their consciousness onto war and the illusions of what the news is trying to let's say where the news's consciousness is currently, to tell a group of people to take their consciousness and go put it there, don't do that as a leader. And it isn't to say that what he was doing was bad. It is to tune out and really look at the bigger picture before you are directing an entire crowd to go do something for the sake of feeling their feelings. I am sure that there's many things that we can walk outside and consciously tune in and experience that will allow us to tap into those emotions and work ourselves through an emotional healing process that does not require us taking our consciousness and focusing it on the problem to create more problems. Understand that when we are even allowing ourselves to sit in a negative, let me rephrase, it is okay and valid for you to feel all of your emotions. But when you make excuses for why you are allowed to stay there, you are adding to the collective suffering. And so you have to really be conscious about, for one, the fact that you're addicted to the suffering. You're addicted to the chemicals that it elicits within your body, and you're addicted to the emotional reactions and responses that you get from the world around you. And let me tell you that once you surrender that and really detox yourself from that. And you get to experience this level of balance and synergy with things, and feeling the support from people and from yourself, mostly from this level of consciousness where you don't even need to seek outside of yourself, because you are filled up with God and you're following your guidance from God. So the doubts of the ego can be surrendered. And then you're loving yourself. Then when people are validating you or showing up in your experience, it's not like it's a different energy. And when you share something with your friends and family, when you're in an uncomfortable, like say you're having a situation, a problem or whatever, and you're reaching out for help or comfort, and you receive that pity, that it's a very sticky energy. It's almost like this spider web that's like gooey. And when people feel bad for you, when people commiserate, there's a dark energy that is created. It's almost like a cloud of smoke. And when people, it makes me physically sick. And I can remember when that energy I used to confuse it with being fed of life force energy. So it is understandable that we have all felt separated on this planet. It is understandable that you desire connection and you don't know how to receive it or experience it. It is understandable that you have this clinging addiction energy that has been programmed within you. And you can consciously, at any day, today or any day, make a choice to choose to go higher, to choose to surrender, and know that it's not going to be easy. If you think about, if you were to be addicted to heroin and decide to quit today, a lot of people will be like, oh, and then tell you that you need to go get on something else in order for you not to die from the withdrawals. No, actually, you're not going to die from the withdrawals. You're going to feel like you're going to die. And if you surrender to feeling like you're going to die, you could die. But you're not going to die from the withdrawals. I promise you. I've held enough of my friends' heads as they vomited for weeks and got them through every kind of physical addiction that they've ever been through. I feel like that was like my training course that I took in the beginning of my life. So understand you're not going to die, but you're going to feel like it when you're surrendering these addictions. But the only way for us to not have to rebuild from the ashes that remain is if we realize that we have to tap out of Bitcoin's going to save us. This person's going to save us. The aliens are coming. Because there's so many things that you're picking up on that do have the potential of working out or creating something better. But the moment that you cast it off as separated or made it your new addiction, it has to crumble. It has to die, because we can no longer live from this level of density, this level of consciousness. All addictions on the planet will be purged. This is what you're experiencing. But we don't have to have every building fall to the ground. We don't have to lose every business. We don't have to, stop eating food, become breatharians. We don't have to separate ourselves from all connections. We don't have to lose all of our family members in order to make the choice to surrender all of this world, to surrender it all. I'm getting this vision. It was 2 nights before I led my pilgrimage in February. And the weather he showed me this storm that was coming. And I didn't know if I was going to be staying in the house, the Temple Dome Sanctuary. It was actually a ship. We were specifically guided to get that house because it was a ship. And so I wasn't given the information on whether I was staying at the house or not. And we kept filling the house, and then people would get bumped out, and then filling the house and people would get bumped out. And so he was showing me this storm was coming, and that I needed to follow him and journey inside. I was busy. I wasn't listening. And I think an actual storm came, and it was telling me that I needed to go inside, or else a really big storm was going to come during the pilgrimage. And so I turned inside and I saw what he was showing me, and it was like this massive storm, like not just here in Sedona, like it was global. And he was showing me that the reason why we picked this house was because like it had the ability to it was like multi-layered. It was basically to make it through. This house was definitely built to make it through the next mud flood. And so it has like different things you pull down, and like when you get inside of it, you could make it inside of that house for through pretty much any storm. And so what he was showing me was that we all go inside, and basically the whole planet like dies, and we come out and we're the only humans left. And I start to freak out, and I'm like, if this is gonna happen, I need to call my daughter. Like, I need to get my daughter. Like, do I need to get like all of my loved ones here now? And because when he takes me in visions, I'm there. I'm not like thinking about it. I'm there. We're traveling and we're there. We're in this construct that we have co-created in order for me to understand these lessons and get to wherever it is, like a higher level of consciousness, without having to walk it out in the physical and experience so much chaos sometimes. But it feels like there's not any part of me that doesn't feel like it's absolutely real, because it is. And he said, no, you must surrender your life and this world to save it. And he said that I had to be okay with losing every person I loved and being able to stand alone. Yeah, and so like lots of crying and shaking and crying it all the way out of like losing my daughter and my family and like everyone that I loved, and knowing that I was walking into this house, and I wasn't to create fear in the people, that I was to just know that this was the ending, but everyone in the house was going to be saved, because we were the colonizers of the new earth. And so it wasn't until I was able to see that and be still with it, and I saw myself come out of the house after it was all said and done, and we were standing on this mountain, but there was a pole shift, and so it was snowing in Sedona, and we were standing on top of this mountain, and there was nothing. There was no houses. There was nothing but like snow. And it was standing on that mountain and feeling that stillness of, it's gonna be okay. We've done this before, and we're gonna do it again. It's all gonna be okay. Because we didn't lose anyone. They all exist within us. They're all part of us. We're all one. And as soon as I was able to get to that stillness of fully surrendering, then the vision changed. I came out and saw that, oh no, like it's not the end of the world. Like that's not what's actually happening. I needed to have that perception in order to fully surrender it, and it not to just be a concept. And so look at your life and see where you are clinging to things or telling yourself that like we all tell ourselves like stories, you know, if I just have this, I will be that, and all of those stories, even like, you know, being a vegan or not eating sugar or whatever. Like, I'll never forget, I was telling my friends this story about this Domino's experience I had a couple of months ago, where I ordered Domino's and then they canceled my card, and it was a nightmare. And then I tell her the whole story, and at the end of it she goes, "You still eat pizza?" And I was just like, what? She's like, "You haven't evolved past that?" I'm like, absolutely not. Why? But am I addicted to pizza? Do I need to have pizza? No, I don't need to have anything. I don't have an attachment to any kind of food. And neither should you. So look at all of the stories that you tell yourself, that you need to have this for your blood sugar, or you need this, or you're hangry, or whatever it is. What I've been seeing with a lot of the leaders of light is their like number one addiction has been taken away from them. Ultimately, they chose it, but it's needing to be taken away from them unconsciously, because they weren't able to see it and to surrender it consciously. And so, like, you know, if your biggest addiction is food, and you don't have a partner, or you feel lonely or whatever, and so you eat because whatever reason, you eat because you don't have connection, or you perceive you don't have connections, and so you try to fill that void with food. Then something's probably going to happen where you can't eat anymore. You know, maybe some type of throat thing happens, or stomach thing happens. And this isn't to punish you. It is to get us to consecrate ourselves, to get ourselves back to the truth of our divinity, to know that this consciousness was not, it wasn't understood. It wasn't understood when Mother Mary, Jesus, and I all walked together, but we walked as a unified field of consciousness to share this consciousness with all in the physical realm of things as physical teachers. For me, I was really there to teach the students how to be a student. Jesus would give his word, and there was always this level of, is it this or is it that? And it was so clear for us, no, it is not this or that. It is Christ consciousness. It's not this or that. And so even after Jesus, his resurrection and ascension, when it was just me and the guys, the reason why the division between Peter and I came, and him going to create the Catholic Church, which is fine, but he created it from a wounding, from a place of feeling jealous that he wasn't the beloved. It wasn't even about that. He felt jealous because he didn't understand the consciousness, because he felt like Jesus was giving something more to me than he was receiving. And he was so devoted and desired to understand, but because his consciousness just simply wasn't there. And I feel like there was some other things underlying, whether that be something related to his sexuality or whatever, because there's nothing wrong with if he was attracted to men or whatever it was. It's about that jealousy created demons, like it's a energy that feeds off the separation. And so you have to think about how him desiring to feel his own specialness and how distorted that realm of the churches became. And every church has had its place, and there's nothing demonic or wrong with any of them. But it's to say that it's to see it through clear filters of, this is what happens when separated minds create religion, create systems. And so as you are awakening and remembering the truth that only love is real, remember that Jesus did not die for your sins. He died because you sinned, because you missed the mark. You didn't have your focus on God. And so that all that needs to happen is for forgiveness to happen and come back to your center and a focus on God. But then also understand that I'm saying that the only reason why a death or crucifixion was written as even a possibility came because of fear. God is only love. Fear is an illusion. But when you hold on to fear to protect yourself or defend yourself, you will only get death. There is no other possibility. You can't protect yourself enough to survive. No. When you desire a need to defend yourself against love, the consequences are always going to be you're going to lose your life. So if you just understood that, then every single time you go into fear, you can look at it like this is valueless. This is pointless. This gets me nothing, nowhere. And the ego will try to make lots of beautiful illusions to make you think that you've been justified in your actions of defense, or that it kept you safe in this way or that way. But understand that the moment that you are allowing for fear to enter, there's that dark energy that is like smoke that is fogging your vision. And then from this level of fear, you cast that energy onto the world around you, creating exactly what it is that you're fearing. And so if you can look at Jesus and understand that you can give thanks and know that death is merely an illusion when you remember the truth of who you are. When you step into love and you surrender all fear, it's like that level of consciousness that I was telling you about. When you ascend past, when you understand what creates victim consciousness, and you realize that you are part of everything, and you take responsibility, there's no way for you to sink back into like that level of distortion. So it's just as if you are to take off the veils of ego illusions and your consciousness starts to rise, but say your embodiment starts to rise as well. And you start to become more light. And then there's a group of us, the untouchables, the ones who have been here before, that are here again. The disciples, the apostles. And then all of the devotees that are that were dedicated to Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and all of the rest of, there's so many groups. When you stand in your remembrance of the Christ that you are, and embody as one of the untouchables, it's like there's no need to fight against. If you can just imagine, even warriors coming with guns trying to shoot us or attack us, and we just start to float and become more etheric, and even the bullets do not penetrate, and all we are doing is projecting love, and the trees start to sing, and everyone on earth feels peace and love and comfort, and those feelings of defense and fear start to melt away. And eventually you see how idiotic it is to continue to hold your weapons, as they do you no good, and it allows for you to soften and surrender the fighting instinct, For many thousands of years, the ones that, even though it was a collective choice, but the ones that really took the fall for the crucifixion really did a lot of work on with the amount of guilt that left on their soul. And one of the things that we're at critical mass at this now moment is that all parties involved have gotten to a level of forgiveness within self and within all of it, and are awakening to Christ consciousness. And so we came before to seed it within humanity, and we all ascended to the light body so that this consciousness could be seated within all of humanity as we became one with the Holy Spirit. And we are back again in physical form, and yes, Jesus is here in physical form, but he will not be revealed for some time, because he's saying it's my journey or leg of the race. He's mostly playing a supportive role, as I did before. So because only the Divine Mother can birth the Christ in all. And that is what we are here for, is to birth the Christ in all, to allow all of us, all of the children, to come back home. To first, it will be a more Lemurian state of consciousness, where you learn how to harmonize and to be in that frequency of synergy. And as all of the judgment starts to fade away, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. You will ascend back to the Garden of Eden and be there for some time. And then eventually we'll all go back to one. We came from one, we will go back to one. So, the last part I just want to share is that as the sun is just coming out and shining so bright, if you have the experience of walking as Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary or Jesus, what I'm sharing is not to take away from your experience. It is to validate your experience. Because one of the first awakenings of Christ, of knowing that you are a high priest, a priestess, that you have been a devotee of Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene, you have this awakening, this remembrance within you, and it comes in as your own consciousness. And so you will see your life, your experience through the eyes of an experience of Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary or Jesus. It's going to come through in that way. And if you're having the experience of experiencing a life as Mary Magdalene, and you're having this love affair with Jesus, allow for that, because it's through that love affair that Jesus awakens your heart to Christ consciousness, And when you are fully awakened and actualized to that, then the awareness of who you truly are comes. And so what I'm seeing now within the collective is there's been these pillars of beautiful sisters and brothers that have been holding the pillars of these teachings of like the Sisterhood of the Rose and Magdalene temples and things of that nature. And they've all been holding these pillars. And now as I'm stepping into who I am and who I've come here to be, they're all awakening to who they are. And I'm seeing some of them are getting more galactic assignments and or other assignments, or maybe it is to start gathering with me or somebody else that you're gravitating towards. Most likely you will go to a different lifetime. You'll start to integrate a different lifetime. So maybe you'll start to pick up on lifetimes in ancient Egypt or whatever your story is for you. It's just important to see it as an unfoldment process, and notice when the ego wants to be like, I'm the only one, and there is the three of us who walked here in the physical, who seated our consciousness with all, who are here again. And we are, it's like the source of the archetype. But we're not the only one, of course, because there's a whole collective consciousness of Magdalenes. There's, you know what I'm saying? So like, understand that when the ego wants to play the separation games of just feeling its own unworthiness, to just ask it to be still and to feel the Divine Mother, to hear my voice, or to feel Jesus, and remember that being separated, being the only one, does not make you special. We are all holy children of God, and this is about awakening Christ consciousness within you, for you to actualize the Christ and to remember the truth of your divinity. And so I'm simply standing because I am here to bring us all home and fulfill the prophecy of Jesus. But I am not here alone. So, yeah, I feel like I've shared a lot with all of you, and I feel I was not going to check the comments, but oh, beautiful. I just want to thank you guys for those of you that have wow, it's been exactly 1 hour and 33 minutes. Of course it has. I love you all so very much. You guys can reach me at KendraDivinePurposeMentor.com. Allow this to unfold within your consciousness, and allow it to just plant seeds. Don't, if it strikes any uncomfortability within you, just use your own discernment, surrender it, and keep clinging to God, going higher with your connection to spirit, and surrendering all fear. Have a good day.